Welcome to Golfonomics episode 3. Today we are going to be talking about pricing your tee times, and our percentage that we're going to discuss today, our key metric is 75%. We're going to get into all kinds of interesting topics on this discussion. We're going to talk about pricing strategy. We're going to talk about what dynamic pricing is. We're going to talk about what demand-based pricing is. Shocker, they're not the same thing. And we're going to talk about some metrics that we're seeing in the data that we collect and analyze for our clients, and how it can uncover some trends in the industry. So today with us, we've got Katie Brandow, marketing expert responsible for all of the communication of these pricing changes. So some great input coming at you from Katie and how to communicate these things. We've got Christian Wetzel.
Hi-yo. Christian,
really jack of all trades in the golf industry, but has been around the pricing discussion, not just for tee times, all over the place. And Mr. Brian McCann.
Hey there.
Mr. Brian McCann, maybe his most involvement with dynamic pricing was when his office was next to me at a certain management company. He had to listen to me having these conversations all day, every day.
Yes, my knowledge is purely based on osmosis.
I didn't intend to sell you short there, Brian, but I thought that would be funny. All right, let's get into it. All right, today on the Golfonomics Podcast, last couple of weeks we've been talking about marketing, mostly communication, Facebook, social media, and those things. We're gonna make a little switch today. We're gonna talk about pricing, and specifically pricing tee times. So, if you're a public golf course out there, I think we'll have some good information for you. If you're a private club, there's still going to be a lot to take in here, because we're going to start by talking about pricing strategy. So, to set the table for our whole conversation today, there are 3 ways that you can price your products, any product. You can do market-based pricing, which is traditionally what we're using in the golf industry. And that's where you go out, you look at your competitors, you compare their experience to your experience, you take their prices, and you just sort of pick a number. Christian, I know you've got a lot of experience doing market analyses like that. What, how do you feel about market-based pricing?
Market-based pricing, has its merits. Obviously, you want to know who's out there, who you're competing against, but I think we've seen a pretty big change here. Brian, what do you think as far as this change we're seeing so rapidly occurring?
I think, to your point, it's insufficient, right? It's like a good starting point to figure out what's going on in your neck of the woods if you have no idea. But I think most operators are sort of out of that mindset of like being in a black hole. And I think pricing, on the one end is so transparent to the consumer that it would be impossible to miss as the operator. So I don't think it's enough. I think you need to do something beyond market-based pricing. But I don't want to give anything away. I know Ross has got a few more definitions here.
Okay, so pricing strategy 2, one that we're all very familiar with, would be cost-based pricing. So traditionally used primarily in your food and beverage operation at your golf course, right? You buy a Bud Light for $1. You decide you're going to sell it for $3 because you need to cover overhead, you need to cover payroll, you need to cover loss, and then hopefully you want to have some margin at the end of it. So Katie, I know at least tangentially you have a lot of experience in the food and beverage world, and therefore with cost-based pricing. Is cost-based pricing something that you see with golf courses and tee times specifically at all?
No, not at all. And I think it kind of goes back to, what we were just talking about, that, it might be a good place to start if you have absolutely no idea what you're doing. But there's definitely more to your pricing that you should explore.
Yeah, and it's hard for tee times, right? Because you're going to have to understand how many tee times you actually have available, how many products you have available to sell in a year. And then you're going to need to bring into that, your overhead costs, your fixed costs to be able to offer tee times, right? Christian, have you done anything like this?
Well, I just remember the old adage kind of when we all got into the industry that, your first golfer is what costs you everything kind of in this scenario, right? It's the same thing that, I was in the ski industry for a while. It's that first skier costs you every single dollar and penny. Every single one after that is just kind of gravy. So the same thing kind of applies in the golf world in this type of pricing.
Yeah, that's like an interesting sort of analogy. If you're a ski mountain, and you're trying to figure out a cost-based pricing strategy, I mean, I don't know what you would do. You probably figure out what your uphill capacity is, how many people you can put on a lift in any given hour, and then how much it costs you to do that, and figure out how much it costs you to put somebody up the mountain 5 times in a day or whatever. I mean, it's pretty complex stuff in skiing and golf, which I think is why it's not used very much in these industries. So that sort of brings us to our third pricing strategy, which is the one that we're going to spend the rest of the episode talking about, and that is demand-based pricing. So let's start. Katie, what does demand-based pricing mean to you?
So demand-based price is really a price that's just based on the demand. It's as simple as it sounds. You're pricing your tee times based on how many folks out there want to play your golf course.
Brian,
What about?
For me, demand-based pricing is the only version of the truth you need to be concerned about when it comes to pricing your golf
That's what
course.
I'm talking about. Christian?
No, I completely agree. I mean, especially what we've seen recently, this rapid dynamic change and how golf has kind of fought through the pandemic has created this, through the roof level of demand that's basically changed overnight as far as what we've seen. And, you have golfers lining up at your doors, and you have more singles calling you day of trying to weasel their way into a threesome or so. I mean, it has changed dramatically.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have all these fancy terms, demand-based pricing, dynamic pricing, yield management, on down the list, right? But at the end of the day, if you got more customers that want to buy your products, raise your prices. That's what demand-based pricing is in a nutshell. And hopefully here through the rest of the episode, we can give you some stats, to come into that.
Well, you can't make more tee times, unfortunately, with the day you have left, right? I mean, there's some creative ways. I've seen, some properties out there do kind of shotguns for their daily fee golfers, double tees. There's a lot of those things you can do, but at the end of the day, you really have a set amount of white space on the board.
We're a fixed supply industry, right? We're not like, the making widgets over here, and if we have a lot more demand, we can just implement a night shift and increase our capacity by 33%. The timeline to add inventory in the golf industry is literally how long it takes to build and open a new golf course, which, as everyone knows, is years. Now, hey, you want to go from 10-minute splits to 9-minute splits, you're going to increase your capacity a little bit. You want to go split tees on Saturday and Sunday mornings, you'll pick up a couple slots of capacity. That way, you can also open up your back nine in the mornings for 9-hole rounds, which we actually haven't seen the growth in revenue for those back nine tee times on Saturday and Sunday morning that we thought we would. So there are ways that you can tweak your capacity slightly and increase supply. But really, in our industry, our supply curve is like a straight line, which is not the traditional look of the supply and demand curve that most people learned in Economics 101. All right, so let's jump into some data here. So before we get into this, I just want to say, as an economics major dropout and someone who stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, I'm definitely the person that should be talking about this stuff. So everybody should listen to what we have to say here.
Today's podcast is not brought to you by Holiday Inn Express.
I did change my major. Technically, I didn't drop out, I guess. So anyway, as some of you may or may not know, our company that we all work for is called Methodologies, and one of the core things that we do here is we work with data. So we have lots of data from lots of golf courses. We have it warehoused and in a format that allows us to do kind of some cool analysis. So we did one of those analyses to prepare for this podcast. So we pulled a sample of 13 golf courses spread across the country, spread across different types of markets, right? So small markets, big markets, cities, higher end courses and lower end courses, 9-hole courses, 27-hole courses, 36-hole courses. So we have a pretty, sort of random sampling of these 13 golf courses. And what we did was we looked at Saturday mornings in the month of May 2021, and we did just a straight utilization analysis. Before we did that, we removed all of the inventory that had bad weather. So we have a custom weather benchmarking system that categorizes every hour of every day and the weather conditions. So we took out all the times that it was bad for golf, and we looked at what was left over. And we found that of that group of courses, the average utilization on Saturday and Sunday morning was 75%. Now, that number could mean a lot of different things. So let's go to Brian first. 75% utilization. What's it mean? Is that good, bad, in the middle?
I'm going to be the first one to say that I am not like Ross, and I am not the economic. I think I barely passed macro and microeconomics in college, and in fact, I switched my major away from that. Ended up being a Spanish teacher, and now I'm in marketing automation. So anyway, side note, parking lot that.
That's a podcast in itself.
So I am not the expert here. This is one of those things where I am, over my skis, as I'm sure you would like to say, Christian, in the ski industry. So
Snowboards, but yes.
To me, 75% doesn't mean a lot. It sounds good, but I mean, like, shouldn't you be at 100% utilization? Wouldn't that be the gold standard? So I kick it back to you guys, and Christian, Katie, feel free to jump in.
So I'm with Brian. I'm more on the marketing side of this thing. Numbers really aren't always my favorite thing to deal with. So Christian, what are your thoughts?
I mean, to me, 75% is a great number. I think we had a little bit of an offline conversation before, and to me, that's almost Hall of Fame type stuff for a golf course. If you're at 75%, a lot of people think, well, hey, there's another 25% to go. But what we know that to be, there's threesomes out there like we talked about, so they're missing a golfer. There's, a lot of variables in there that cause that 75% to basically be 100% at the end of the day. So to me, that's a great number, and that's a great place to be. And anything on top of that is gravy, icing on the cake, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, so I think you nailed it, Christian, with the kind of the threesomes and twosomes concept. So I think when you look at the utilization from the top level and you say, hey, we have 10-minute splits, which means you got 24 tee times in an hour. And so if you're at 75% utilization, that means that you're at, you have 18 of those filled. Is that right? Did I do that math right?
Your math is correct.
All right. So 18 out of 24, 75%, right? That's simple math. Everybody can handle that. But there's a lot of different ways to get to 18 slots. It could be 4 foursomes and a twosome, meaning that you have a foursome and a twosome available, or it could be 6 threesomes. 6 times 3 is 18. Yes, 6 threesomes, right? And those are very different circumstances, right? Because the chances that you're going to pick up 6 singles is much, much lower than picking up 1 foursome and 1 twosome. So you kind of have to build that in, and you kind of have to look at your utilization as on the tee time level as opposed to the tee time slot level. So when you sort of dig into it, 75%, just sort of a random occurrence, happens to be also the number that we treat as capacity. So if you get to 75%, we sort of mentally consider that 100%, because we know there's going to be 2s out there. We know there's going to be 3s out there. We know that people are going to book for 4 and show up with 3. And those, it's not like you could have resold that one that's a no-show. We'll get to no-shows later. But Christian, I know you kind of have some thoughts on this sort of 75% number, because most people out there, right, they think 75% is a lot of opportunity left when really there's not that much.
Well, you know me, I'm the analogy guy, and to me, that's Cooperstown stuff, right? You're heading to the Hall of Fame as an operator. If you work for an MCO, hopefully you're getting tons of praise for being at that level, because that just shows that your course is full. Also, as we talked about, demand is up, so the opportunity to hit that 75% number is much more opportune right now.
Yeah. So baseline takeaway, when you're looking at your utilization reports, first of all, look at them by hour, because the 9 a.m. tee time, Brian, you play golf on the weekends, right? And you have a little kid, as I do. And so, 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. are 2 totally different products for you as a consumer. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. 100%. Like it is night and day. I mean, I'm grateful to get out on the weekend.
Right. Like that. So what's your, let's say you're a $50 golf course. Let's say you go play a $50 golf course. And let's say this Saturday, your wife and child are going to be out of town visiting the grandparents, and you have that rare, like, free opportunity to just go play golf without any guilt or anything. What price, how much more than $50 would you be willing to pay?
This is going to sound insane, but given the scenario, there is no cap to the amount of money that I'm going to spend if I have all day on the golf course.
Did you hear that, golf courses?
It doesn't
If
even
you have Brian McCann on your tee sheet.
It sounds crazy, right? But I guarantee you, I feel the same way. Like I will pay any price. It doesn't matter because that opportunity comes around so rarely. And there are a lot of golfers like Brian and I out there that will pay.
Well, that becomes heightened demand, right?
Exactly. And what it really becomes, technically speaking, Christian, and you can go back to my economics, my 2.5 years of economics education here. That's what we call price elasticity. So in other words, it is how price sensitive your customers are. The technical economic term is price elasticity, but really what it means is price sensitivity. And that is how much does your demand fluctuate as you increase and decrease your prices, right? And that's a big component in the golf industry and a big thing that has to be considered in your pricing strategy.
Well, like you said, though, looking at those key day parts is integral to that. You know, you can't compare 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. or Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. to 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning. It just doesn't work because you have to look at who the golfer is that plays at that time, too, and how they're impacted by that price. Like you just referenced, you two guys, if you could play Saturday at 9 a.m., no restrictions, no issues when you came home, you know, your bags aren't packed when you get back, you know, you'd pay any dollar amount in the world, right? Whereas the guy that comes out at 3 p.m. who's surfing for those deals is not that same golfer.
Exactly. And, you know, Katie, I know that you are more of a, I don't know, casual golfer, right? You're not out there, you know, competing in the ladies club championship or anything. Like what's your perception on this? Like from a consumer, like put your consumer hat on right now. And you and Adam are thinking about going out and playing 9 holes on a, you know, Saturday afternoon. You know, how do you make your decision?
So actually, Ross, last week we had the same opportunity and we actually played twice. We played one at a twilight rate on a Tuesday night, same exact golf course, 9 holes. And the twilight rate for the two of us, we paid $35. We go back on Friday morning. So we're not even talking Saturday here. We're talking Friday morning. We had an 8:50 tee time. Guess what we paid for the two of us?
$100?
Very close. We paid $92.
Wow.
Same exact golf course, same exact experience, but we wanted that opportune time, so we paid for it.
So that golf course is doing a nice job with their pricing strategy. If that Tuesday afternoon time is not in demand. Was it busy? Was it busy on Tuesday evening?
No, it was not. They said they had a league, but we didn't really see many folks out there. So they're doing it right.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. They I wonder what point of sale system they're using if some of that stuff's automated.
How are they using that data, right?
Right. So that's a great example, right? And I think to your point, Christian, right? I mean, treat the tee times differently. Even if they're only an hour apart, like 9 a.m. on Saturday is going to be different than 10 a.m. on Saturday. There's going to be different demand factors that go into that. There's going to be different types of golfers. And maybe just go back to Katie really quick here, put your marketing hat back on. You know, I know in terms of creative, right? We are tailoring our creative to the different time frames that the courses are trying to promote. So how does that change? You know, how does the creative that goes behind a Saturday or Sunday morning tee time change from a Thursday evening or a league or something like that? Like how are you changing the creative to reach the right customer group that actually wants to buy that tee time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you have to alter the marketing because if you go at them with the same exact concepts, right, you're not going to have much success. So during the weeknights, I think, you know, a loosen your tie special after 5 tee times, you're getting that twilight rate. That's a fantastic way to do it. That's exactly what I took advantage of last week. Now on the weekend tee times, that's more of a book early and save. These tee times are going to fly. You need to get your reservation and get it when you know you want it, because if you wait until Saturday morning, you're not going to have much luck. You're going to be playing at 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon when it's hot as heck and you just want to be on the boat.
Book early and save. Perfect segue into dynamic pricing, which we're going to get to in a second. But first, we're going to go to Brian.
I just had to say, damn, Katie, those were awesome off the cuff examples. Although the only thing I was going to comment on was that loosen your tie is probably more of like loosen your sweatpants in the age of work from home and COVID, but like totally amazing. And while we were having that conversation, and like, thank you for both your story of your your pricing, your little anecdote there, and then your marketing examples. I just couldn't help but think how impossible this is for so many small business owners, owner operators that don't have a team of people. And it's just like, it reminded me like why we exist, like as a company, and like the mantra we've sort of built around small businesses. So it's just like, we got into the social media, the numbers, but I'm like, this number in particular, like utilization, and then the trickle down effect of how it impacts like marketing and everything else is like one of those moments where I'm like, yeah, this is why we do what we do. This is why we do what we do, which is really exciting. So thanks for, giving me that reminder of like, oh yeah, this is who we're helping.
This is pretty foundationary stuff. I mean, it's the basis of these, of golf course operations, right? Obviously, pricing, demand, and, monitoring your tee sheet and analyzing your tee sheet.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to get on my soapbox right now for a second. Marketing has 4 P's. Some people say 7, some people 11, whatever. It's 4, the essence of marketing is to break things down to its most basic, areas, right? So 4 P's of marketing: price, product, place, promotion. Okay. So what are you going to sell? How much are you going to sell it for? What are you going to sell it for? Or where are you going to sell it? And James, hold on, I'm going to restart that. Marketing has 4 P's. You can expand that out if you want, but the essence of marketing is break things down to their, core basis. And so the 4 P's of marketing are product, price, place, and promotion. In other words, what are you going to sell? How much are you going to sell it for? Where are you going to sell it? And how are you going to let customers know how to sell it? And a lot of times we get questions at Metolius like, why are you doing this business intelligence stuff that's all about pulling in data about product sales and customers? And like, that's like this technology dashboard thing. And then you're also doing this marketing communication stuff, like actually putting stuff on social media and updating websites. Well, the reason is that product is part of marketing. So while we are a marketing technology company, we don't believe we can do a good job helping our customers unless we know what's actually selling at their business. And that's how the data that we're talking about today makes it through to kind of the marketing world. So if you don't understand if people are buying your 9 a.m. tee time, how do you know you need to promote that? Like, we've gone so far to the communication side of marketing as an industry, and we've lost the concept that everything's based on the product. The product comes first. And if you don't know what's happening with the product, you can't do a good job with the rest of marketing. I will step off my soapbox now.
No, I think it was a great soapbox to be on. I mean, I think you have to have data to back up your decisions and your choices. And if you're just wildly, stabbing at ideas or throwing things against the wall, I mean, you're not doing yourself any good service. And I think what we can do as far as the data, the ability to view it, how to view it, can give people that true foundation of where they need to go next.
Exactly. And let me just say, like, there's great data available in your T-Sheet point of sale system. Like, you can get it there. You don't need this technology system that we're all behind to be able to do this. It sure makes it a heck of a lot easier, but you can do this without that. So this will be our segue now into, okay, you got all this demand. You maybe not have updated your pricing. You maybe not are using dynamic pricing. We didn't talk about that. Dynamic pricing isn't actually a pricing strategy. It's just a tool so that you don't have to do it yourself. And so let's talk about that. So Katie, we have a lot of courses that are using dynamic pricing. Are you seeing a lot of our clients switch over to a dynamic pricing strategy?
Yes, absolutely. Especially with such a huge demand. Why not?
Yeah, right. You don't have to actually update your tee times. Right? It's not like the GM is going to have to. If you want to implement your own demand-based pricing strategy, what you would have to do is log into your tee sheet every day, look at how many available tee times there are, and if there aren't very many, change the price on those. That's demand-based pricing. It absolutely is, but you're just doing it manually. Many of the point of sale systems have dynamic-based pricing where you can set up some rules when, utilization reaches X number, increase my price. If utilization drops below this number, decrease my price, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess first, Katie, with courses switching over to that, are you doing anything specific on the communication side for customers, right? So if someone's listening, you're thinking about going to dynamic pricing, but you're worried your customers are going to be mad at you. We've dealt with that a little bit. So Katie, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, from a course level, I think being transparent is the most important thing. So it's being transparent with course conditions. It's being transparent with prices, whatever it is, just be honest and own who you are and what you're selling. So if you're going to go to this, book early and save type of format, just let people know. Say, if you know you're coming out on Saturday or you want to spend Sunday on the course, book that a week or 2 weeks in advance and you're going to get the best price possible. Now, if you're waiting until Thursday, Friday, you're paying for it. So I think, just being transparent is honestly the first and best step to take with this.
I think our friends at the airlines do that, right?
No doubt.
They want to fill that plane up, but then they realize at a certain point, people need to get where they want to go.
I was going to say the same thing. And I think where years ago, this was so foreign to the industry, like it is so commonplace now, like in everything we do, as being just like app driven consumers, right? Like you see surge pricing when you book an Uber or Lyft. You see, restaurant reservations now with the advent of like Talk and things like that. It's like you pay a premium to eat dinner at 7 p.m., on a Friday night versus 9. And then a Tuesday, it's cheaper, right? Like I think we're over this idea that like it's, it has to be the same thing when it's not, because there's just not the demand there. Whereas like used to be you roll up to the golf course and there was, the sign above the pro shop and that tells you how much you paid. But that was also when the tee sheet was a physical sheet. So we've
two
moved
rates,
far
right?
beyond that.
Yeah,
9
if
holes,
you've got one
18
of those
holes.
boards in your golf shop that has all your rates on it, the
Take it down.
very first thing you need to do when you're done, actually stop listening to this right now and go take it down, and then you can pick up the rest and learn how to set up your dynamic pricing.
Yep. Go get an axe, a chainsaw, a screw gun, whatever you need to do, and just tear that sucker down.
Have a little ceremony, market-based pricing is dead. Bury it under the first tee or something and go to dynamic pricing.
Katie, maybe we do a marketing pitch on its s'mores night and we use that lumber as the fire.
It's a great idea, Christian.
All right, so dynamic pricing, right? There's generally two components that we want to think about. One is how much you're going to increase or decrease the price based on demand, based on how many people are booked into that. And then the other one is time to expiration, right? Which is essentially how early in advance we want to book that. Many systems have the ability to use both of those factors in setting up your demand-based pricing. But let's talk a little bit about time to expiration, and then we'll kind of wrap this thing up here in a second. But do you want to start high and go down, or do you want to start low and go up?
I'd say start where you are and go up.
Interesting.
I know that was a little curveball there, but
I think if they're booking early and they're committing and they're paying online, I think they need a little bit of a reward. You got to give them a little bit of something to keep them coming back.
But wouldn't you say right now with the amount of demand? I mean, I was just talking about this before. I went to a buddy's bachelor party and we tried to book 2 weeks out and we called like the hour that you could get in and start booking. And they're like, oh no, Saturday morning. Yeah, already taken, So, I mean, if you have that level of demand, I mean, honestly, as an operator, and this is coming from the operator side, right? If I put my golfer hat on, I probably wouldn't like what my operator hat was saying, but charge more because people are going to pay for it right now. And that's what we're just seeing in the industry.
And that's, honestly, one of the things that you need to understand to be able to develop a strategy around this sort of time to expiration is you got to understand how far in advance your customers are actually booking, right? So if you're looking at Saturday at 9 a.m., what percentage were booked 7 days out? What's percentage 6 days out? What percentage 5 days out? 4, 3, 2, 1, and same day? That's going to give you a curve of when your customers are wanting to book, and that's going to inform your whole strategy. Again, most point of sale systems can give you that information. Certainly if you're working with our software platform, we give you that information. But that's a key metric to decide or key curve to understand. And then what you're trying to do is you're trying to shift that curve to get people to behave the way that you want to behave so that you can run your business in the most efficient way possible.
What about one thing that we kind of didn't discuss, but it's a great way to make up some revenue, and that's adjusting your cancellation policy, not letting people out the back door.
For sure. For so long we didn't have demand, right? So everybody got real lax on their cancellation policies, but those cancellation policies were pretty strong back in the, 90s and early 2000s. So hold on, let me look at the data here. It looks like about 5%, a little less, about 4.5% of those rounds that we talked about. So same sample size, same data set, 75% utilization. It looks about 4% of rounds were no-shows, which is not nothing.
Yeah, well, what if you collected those dollars versus, again, letting them out the back door? Then you jump up to 79% perhaps, right?
Yeah. Now, do we actually need to charge the people? Like, how does this work? Because now we're getting the psychology of it, right? How do we get people to cancel when they're not going to show up? So now we've made our way over to,
Well, I think you got to look at those day parts again, right? Like maybe it's not letting people out of tea times that are on Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, that those highest levels of demand.
Yeah.
And where you're capturing that top tier rate.
I don't know. Does Southwest refund you if you no-show your flight?
No, you actually have to take effort and call them and let them know you're not coming.
That's interesting. I never thought about this, but not only do they not refund you, they actually charge you more to change the time. Well, maybe not Southwest, but everybody else.
Yes, United, Delta, American. Sorry, guys, we're calling you out today, but that's the case.
But again,
we're never going to be able to travel now because we've shouted out every airline and Holiday Inn Express. So thank God we're all stuck at home.
Well, we're going to stay at Hyatt hotels and we're going to fly Southwest, right?
Oh, yeah. Not to mention we buried the Ritz-Carlton. So
we just illustrated that they are elastic good. I'm sure they know that.
Do you guys hear that?
So. Hey, Ritz-Carlton, if you're listening and you don't know you're an elastic good, let's go. We can help
call
you.
Ross, call Metolius ASAP.
I guarantee you the people at Ritz-Carlton are smarter than these four fools. At least me. I all want to speak for myself. This fool.
I just like staying at their properties.
To put this back on the rails,
Yes,
about pricing, I was totally opposite you, Katie. I think you should charge a premium for people who want to book farther in advance because they know they want to play on that specific day. There's a window there, yes, like a book early grace period, but like far enough, like opening the tee sheet up, like make them pay a premium. Like if you want to play I think a perfect example is Father's Day. If you want to play with your dad on Father's Day at 7 a.m., like charge a super premium for that tee time. Like and 3 months out, say like, hey, we're opening Father's Day. Let us know if you're interested.
Yeah, because they are inelastic.
Yeah.
Right? They're playing for any price.
I want to play here with my dad. And that's like my gift to him.
The variable they want is the time. And so if that's their variable, then price is not their variable.
Exactly. It's the old adage, right? There's three factors. There's there's the day, there's the price, and there's the time. The customer gets to pick two, and the golf course picks the third.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, I think that plays so much more now with this change that we've seen over this past year and the bump that golf has received. I mean, yeah. And I think too, maybe even look at your booking windows, right? Like I talked about that golf course that I called the exact 2 weeks out. Maybe start looking at 3 weeks if that suits your business.
Yeah. Get the inventory booked in, right? And then it's easier to staff. It's easier to understand your course, maintenance requirements. It's easier to understand, how you're going to, if you're going to offer a breakfast special, if there's actually going to be people there or not, right? So getting people to book early definitely has some value in terms of running your business. But I also agree with Brian, sometimes the really early bookers are the ones who want something very specific. So they're willing to pay more, and I know we just basically gave you all two totally conflicting options here. But the fact of the matter is every course is different and every customer base is different, and they're going to react differently to your pricing. So you have to understand what the trend is for booking. But I mean, I would tend to agree with Christian on this one. Start with your sort of rack rate price, whatever it is, whatever your window is, 7 or 14 or 24 days out or whatever it is. And then increase and decrease that based on your demand as you get closer and closer to expiration. But don't just forget about it that you did that and let it run forever, right? The key is, hey, wait a couple weeks, see what happens, look at the data, adjust your strategy, wait another couple weeks, look at the data, right? So it's a continuous process. Just because it's dynamic pricing and the point of sale companies are saying, hey, you set it and forget it, that's not true. You need to look at the data and adjust that strategy to make sure it's lining up with your business objectives, which, by the way, should be how many dollars am I collecting per hour on the T-sheet? That's the only thing that you need to pay attention to. Frankly, utilization percent doesn't matter. The price that you're charging doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is how many dollars make it into your register for every 1 hour of tea times that you have.
No, I think you gotta, like you said, you gotta, to know where you're going, you gotta know where you've been. And I think if you look at those, you look at that week prior, look at how that booking flowed through as far as the percentages and on what days, what booked. Try to map that into your next week and use the learning from prior. Apply that data to the next week, and you'll get better every single week at pricing yourself.
Exactly. And you'll be tuned into how your customers are reacting to your price changes. So you'll have a better, understanding of what needs to happen anyway to make things better.
Well, and the consumers are really intelligent too. Like, I know that you book flights on Tuesdays because that's when the rates adjust and change, right? And the consumers will begin to learn your behaviors at the property, and they'll kind of become more in tune, more in line with you because you'll have that level of continuity there.
Yep. It's all about the psychology. In the end, it's all about the psychology of it. Okay, so we've gone all different directions here. I don't even know what these takeaways are going to be like, but Christian, what's your takeaway from today? What's the one thing, operators listening, what's the one, aside from taking down the rate board in the golf shop, we'll take that one off the table. Hopefully they paused and did that already. What's one thing?
Raise your rates.
If you're at 75%.
Just raise them. Pretty much most golf courses should raise their rates right now.
I mean, I agree. That's applicable for 95% of the golf courses in America right now. Raise it.
The golfer in me just cried a little bit though. The guy paying the extra rate inside my wallet just got a little sadder.
Hey, they pay Topgolf. They pay Topgolf prices. They're going to pay your prices, which is going to be cheaper than Topgolf unless you're in the top 2% of public courses.
Right.
Ryan, take away.
Mine is very simple. Like Christian's, it's just what gets measured gets managed. So
Peter Drucker.
By doing this, thinking about this stuff, like you're already a step ahead than most operators. I think, the vast majority, I think there's obviously some people out there who finely tune machines, but there's always room for improvement. There's always something to adjust to. So watch these key metrics like we talked about, particularly the one you mentioned at the end, your revenue per hour, and, just let that be your guide. And I guarantee you'll see results within a fairly short period of time, within a season.
For sure. Katie?
Let's see. Today it's going to be dynamic pricing, I think. If you're not utilizing that tool, start doing it. And then with that, just be transparent with your customers and let them know what's going on with your pricing. And you're going to have a full golf course.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. So my takeaway is going to be to go all in on demand-based pricing. So I think a lot of people that are listening are probably going to go, well, we can't charge that much more than our competitors. Well, it doesn't really matter, because if people don't want to pay it, your demand's going to go down, and therefore your dynamic pricing or demand-based pricing strategy is going to account for that shift in demand based on your price increase. So don't be afraid of switching from your market-based pricing strategy or your cost-based pricing strategy if you're doing that and going into demand. And there's no bigger reason to do that other than the golf industry has seen the biggest shift in the demand curve ever in the last year. So if you're trying to keep up with the trends that are happening in the golf industry, you're basically required to adopt a demand-based pricing strategy and implement that. And so just go all in, just own it, pay attention to the data and understand what's coming back to you, and then refine and adjust, but go all in on demand-based pricing, because there is no better time. There's never been a better time in the history of golf than right now to implement it if you haven't done it already. And I can't say, or do not that and hire us, because we don't actually set your prices. But if you want a better handle on what's actually happening with your pricing strategy, understanding your T-sheet metrics, and setting the right prices, of course, our platform can help you do that. And we would love to help you understand your data and adopt a pricing strategy that's going to maximize your revenue.
Ross, that's the biggest thing. We help you understand your data.
Yeah.
We help you see it. We help you manage it. We help you look at it.
And it's because we stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Not the Ritz-Carlton.
Yeah, maybe in a few years. Who knows? All right, that does it for today. I hope you learned something. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks talking about another metric from the golf industry that hopefully can help you run your business more efficiently.